Last episode, Maggie and the three of them used a ruse to surround Brandon. However, they underestimated Brandon's incredible strength, leaving them powerless against him. In a critical moment, Negan used his cunning to finally incapacitate Brandon.
Well, ding.
But Brandon quickly showed signs of recovery. With a sickle in hand, Maggie slowly approached to avenge their fallen comrade. Daryl's reason for preventing them was because the Reapers now controlled their camp. To ensure their safe exit, they had to use Brandon as a hostage. Cole was reluctant, as this jerk was the one who had killed his sister. However, he had to consider the bigger picture, so Daryl picks up Brandon's walkie-talkie.
Leah. It's me. We need to talk.
After a while, the two sides agreed to meet in the courtyard, and they carefully walked out with Brandon in tow. Anything could happen during negotiations. To be safe, Daryl handed his gun to Maggie. As soon as Daryl said that, Leah came out of the door. Daryl held a knife to Brandon's neck and walked into the courtyard. Leah came out with two men when she saw that her partner was okay. After this unexpected turn of events, the Reapers suffered heavy losses, and only a few of them remained. Daryl firmly said, "Drop your weapons and head north without looking back. I'll kill him if anyone disobeys. We'll let Brandon go when we're far away." Leah seemed torn, having been deceived by this man once before. After a moment's thought, Leah spoke.
No more lies. Jensen? Everybody out!
The Reapers had someone else on the roof with a gun, and the tide had turned. Maggie and Negan had no choice but to help Cole out into the yard.
The last one! Lower the knife at the rope! Jensen, the woman.
Fine.
Daryl reluctantly released Brandon and cut his ropes. Brandon taunted them, making a mocking kissing gesture. Cole couldn't contain his anger any longer. Brandon's mocking look intensified when he saw how weak Cole was. This perplexed everyone. Leah, too, was puzzled and questioned her subordinates over the radio. However, an unfamiliar male voice responded.
No Jensen here.
Call me Gabriel.
It turned out that Gabriel had killed Mansaya and successfully made it to the rooftop. After a fierce battle, he took down the sniper. Negan smiled, appreciating Gabriel's behavior in that moment. Leah sighed knowing that the die had been cast and softly asked Maggie if the deal she had just made was still valid. Maggie responded mockingly, "I gave you all a chance. You wanted to take us down one by one just now, didn't you? Well, now Gabriel will do the same to you." Leah stood up and retorted forcefully, "Your friend does have a gun, but I bet we can take out all of you before he kills us. The camp is yours, and we'll leave." Daryl agreed, and Maggie didn't object. Leah stood there in contemplation for several tense moments before finally giving in. She told her men to drop their weapons and said goodbye to Brandon. Leah couldn't let her people die for the sake of one man. With that, the matter was finally resolved. Maggie knelt down, looking at the suffering Cole.
For all of them.
After hearing Cole's words, her eyes grew stern. She then turned her gaze toward the departing trio. The deep-seated hatred from the past couldn't be easily forgotten. So, Maggie followed them and slowly pulled out the gun Daryl had given her earlier. Negan stood by, watching with a detached demeanor, knowing he might have done the same. In truth, when Maggie infiltrated the camp from the beginning, her primary goal was not food, but revenge. After the Reapers killed so many of their people, how could Maggie easily let go of this hatred? Maggie then approached Brandon and raised the gun, only to find it empty of bullets. Brandon saw an opportunity to resist and escape using the nearby dagger, but Maggie wasn't about to give him that chance. Negan couldn't help but marvel at how much this woman had changed. Meanwhile, Daryl had been trailing the bloodstains left by Leah, who had been hit in the shoulder and fled in disarray. Daryl surveyed the area and noticed the blood trail disappeared at a particular spot, indicating that Leah was hiding nearby, possibly just behind an obstacle. Rather than searching further, Daryl spoke from where he stood. "This isn't the ending I wanted. We both had a chance to start over, but it's happened now. So go away, before I change my mind." With that, Daryl left. Leah breathed a sigh of relief. No one wants to die like that if they're alive. The Reapers are over. After tending to Cole's injuries, they loaded all the supplies from the warehouse onto the carriage, preparing to take them back to the Alexandria safe zone. This outing had finally yielded some rewards, but Daryl was angry and he didn't want to talk to Maggie for a while. Then she thought of something, so she told Gabriel and Cole to take the food and get going. She'd catch up with them soon. Negan watched her as she walked away and seemed to guess what she was going to do. Half an hour later, Maggie arrived at an abandoned church. They left Alden behind here earlier, and it has been 2 days now. They have no idea how he's doing. Maggie softly called out Alden's name at the entrance. Inside, there was no response in words, but there was movement. Maggie sensed something was amiss and cautiously pushed the door open with a knife in hand. As soon as she entered, a zombie lunged at her, clearly once a member of the Reapers. Maggie got a bad feeling in her heart and looked deeper into the church. However, when she reached a pillar, she fell silent. Alden had turned into a zombie, crawling on the ground. This result was hard for Maggie to accept. She could imagine what had transpired. Undoubtedly, the Reapers had tracked them here after they had left. Despite his grievous injuries, Alden had managed to eliminate the threat but paid with his own life. Maggie crouched down, gazing at her old friend. In her mind, she recalled their first encounter at the hilltop. Back then, as a prisoner of the Saviors, Alden had stood out from the others. He genuinely wanted to join the hilltop, and through months of interaction, Maggie had gradually come to trust him. During her absence, Alden had made significant contributions to the community. The most challenging aspect of the apocalypse was watching old friends, with whom you had endured countless hardships, succumb one by one before your eyes. Maybe one day all the familiar people are gone and you're left alone in the world. How sad would that be? An hour later, Maggie buried Alden beneath a tree, but the sorrow remained undiminished. At this moment, Negan approached quietly from a distance, holding an iron bar as a weapon. Maggie suddenly became alert, not understanding why Negan was following her with an iron bar in hand. She grew tense. Negan, with a serious expression, spoke. "You were bound to do it eventually. Maggie, I don't blame you, really. I knew from the moment you killed those Reapers that promises have no hold over you now. You'll definitely kill me. It's just a matter of time. So, I won't give you that chance." Maggie didn't respond, but she discreetly placed her hand on her waist to guard against any attack from Negan. To her surprise, Negan had followed her not to harm her but to bid farewell. Later that evening, while escorting the food, Gabriel and the others took a break by the roadside. After a while, Maggie came back. She looked sad and shook her head. Daryl and the others understood and didn't ask any more questions. They couldn't help but lament that out of the dozen or so people who had initially set out, only a few of them were returning. Meanwhile, during their absence, many events had unfolded in the Alexandria safe zone. Initially, things had been going well as everyone collaborated to repair the walls to prevent zombies from sneaking in at night. However, over time, the food supply on the shelves dwindled, and there was uncertainty about whether Maggie's group would return with enough food. Carol came up with a solution. She planned to search for the missing horses because when the Whisperers had attacked, all the horses in the community had fled. So Carol took some of the men and tracked them through the woods, but all they found was a sea of broken limbs, and they're all a little disappointed, and they don't know what to do next. With so many people in the community, how would they feed everyone? Just as they were regaining their composure and preparing to search elsewhere for food, they witnessed an unexpected sight that lifted their spirits. The previous gloom was instantly replaced by renewed vigor. In the evening, they returned to the community with the 4 horses, drawing smiles from the people around, because they see hope. After settling the horses, they left, leaving only Carol with the one she had ridden. Later, Carol came to the stable to comfort the horse and coax him to lie down. Carol felt somewhat reluctant, but there was no choice. The people in the community were relying on this to survive, so she had to be cruel. And so, the people ate horse meat, which would be enough to sustain them for 2 days. Carol didn't want to do this because the horses were their companions, but she couldn't let the children starve. The next morning, Jerry had just woken up and rushed through the living room, desperate to relieve himself. When he reached the bathroom and began to enjoy the relief, Jerry suddenly turned his head and was shocked to see a zombie wandering inside the community. His face immediately turned pale.
Dudes! Preach! They're inside the wall!
Hey, Gracie.
Daddy?
And don't let anyone in, okay? Just like we practiced earlier. Go now.